Hey there, welcome back to 16 Stops a Podcast. My name is Josh, and I'm here with Brandon.
What's up?
And today we're going to be talking about, in episode 10, Canon versus Sony, who does it better?
I'm really excited for this one.
Me too. And there's a couple of elements to this. We're going to talk about their marketing, their sales strategy, firmware updates, influencer marketing, all that kind of stuff. So there's going to be a lot to get into with that. So first of all,
we're going to find a definitive winner, and then we're going to let you duke it out in the comments.
Yeah. And so I think we'll talk about some other brands in there too, but it's always Canon versus Sony because they're the big guys. So we'll use them to sort of outline the conversation. So before we get into all of the normal stuff here, I just want to mention that this is the 10th episode, and the reason I'm bringing that up is that we're going to take a little bit of a break after this episode, and probably we're hoping like 3 or 4 weeks, but the reason is we need to take more time to plan these episodes. We didn't realize to produce this on a weekly or semi-weekly basis, it takes a lot of time, not just the editing, but the planning and coordinating our schedules. Brandon, I know both of us are super busy right now, so
I know it's kind of a bummer to take, 3 or 4 weeks off, but it's for the betterment of this podcast. I think you guys are going to enjoy the content much more after me and Josh get our shit together.
Exactly. And be realistic about our timing and all that stuff. So yeah, we're really excited to push through with some more episodes, and I'm going to call them groups of 10, but we should probably call them series or whatever. I just don't think there's a theme to 1 through 10 or 11 through 20. So
yeah, seasons, series. But seasons. I don't know if groups of 10 will fly.
Sorry, math teacher and me,
It's okay.
But anyway, so just keep a lookout for that. And with that in mind, please hit subscribe because you will be notified, or you'll find out when we post. But also, we're really trying to get this channel monetized, and we need 1,000 subscribers. So
we could really use the actual support. It would definitely help on the editing side. It would just make this channel much better. I know it's we're giving you guys subs so you can have money. The money will actually help this podcast get better, which helps you. So
yeah, and it's, if you don't know, to monetize a YouTube channel, you need 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours, and we do have the watch hours. We just need some more subscribers, so it doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, we just need 1,000.
Does anyone actually use the subscribe page on YouTube? I do, but I feel like most people just go in their home screen. So just hit subscribe.
So hit subscribe. You're good.
All right, so I think it's finally time to formalize this segment of the podcast. Let's call it "What Did We Buy?"
Because it's so regular. It's just
yeah.
Tom was like, "You guys buy something every week?" I'm like, "We're not doing it for the sake of the podcast. We just have this is a gear channel, so don't blame us for enjoying gear."
I know. Just before we started recording, I was like, "Brandon, what did you buy?" And you're like, "Nothing." And I'm like, "Come on." You're like, "Oh yeah, there was something." So anyway, for me, as I'm constantly rotating cameras over here, I talked last episode about the C200, which I got a great deal on, and a buddy of mine needed a camera, and it kind of fit his needs, and so I sort of passed that deal along to him and hooked him up, and so he took the C200 for me. And I bought a C70. And
Josh, how many times?
I don't know. I don't even know.
Owned a C70? Is this number 4?
A few, probably 3. I think it's number 3.
3.
And so what I realized after we did that episode with our favorite cameras, and we both put a lot of thought into preparing for that episode. I was like, the C70 is my favorite camera. Why do I not own the C70? I film myself often enough. Get the camera. So I found a really good deal.
You did. You got a killer deal.
Yeah, so a really nice, low hour, good condition used C70. So that's going to be my studio camera. I figure I use my studio camera enough. It's finally time for me to have a cinema camera for my studio that works really well. It's exactly what I want. So
good job, Josh.
We'll see when we come back after the break.
Yeah, I was like, we're going to be gone for 3 or 4 weeks. So's the C70. You're going to have something else. It's okay.
It's fine.
Know your psychology.
I admit to it, for sure. But the C70 is one camera that every time I sold it, I was like, I don't want to sell this camera. And now I have the means to be able to buy it. And so I'm really happy about that. And one thing I love about the Canon cinema cameras is their face only autofocus mode is great, because when it loses focus for a second, it doesn't jump anywhere. It just holds that focus plane. Even the C200 had it, and that is an underrated camera for sure. If anyone's looking to pick one up for your studio or for interviews or that kind of stuff, for the price, it's great. So Anyway, so C70. All right, so I had some other boring stuff to talk about, but no one ever talks about is like I upgraded some of the networking stuff in my house.
Yeah, you had to, I remember the call. You like found a small family of raccoons while you were going under your house trying to find.
Thankfully not. No raccoons, no snakes, nothing like that. But yes, I didn't know. People don't talk about this, but like I use a Synology NAS, which I absolutely love for my storage. And Brandon, like, what do you use? Just like we talk about this for a second.
I'm real high tech. I just grab a really.
Okay.
This is a 4 terabyte SanDisk Extreme SSD.
I think most people are just juggling external hard drives and trying to figure that out. So a while ago, I invested in NAS, which if you don't know is like I never remember what it stands for, Network Access Storage or something. Anyways, I didn't know anything about gigabit, 10 gigabit network. So shout out to Matthew O'Brien who helped me sort this out. And my like transfer speeds are like 8 times faster than they were before. So yeah, so it involved me like literally going in my crawl space, running a new Ethernet wire, getting some new hardware. It was totally worth it though. So this is the boring stuff that creators never talk about is like computers, networking, storage. Like, anyways, I'd love to make more content about that, but like nobody would watch it.
It's pointless.
But it's important. Yeah. It's important. So anyways, in addition to that, Sennheiser, who I met at NAB and I talked to them for a while, they just sent me some stuff and hooked me up to try out some stuff. So I'm pumped because
nice.
I love their products anyways. And I'm looking forward to, so I'm using these in-ear monitors right now that Sennheiser sent me. I love them. So shout out to Sennheiser. They sent me a few microphones to try out too.
Maybe we'll get that sponsor.
Yeah, we'll talk about sponsorships later, Brandon. All right. So that's kind of what's new with me. I am going to start investing in some new lenses. So I think I'm not going to talk about that yet, but I think that might be one of my strategies moving forwards because people always say invest in glass, right? And
glass is
fun for sure. Anyway, so Brandon, what's up with your photography camera adventure? Q2, X100V, XT5. What's up with all that?
So the review is almost done. For the perfectionist in me, every once in a while I'll get like halfway through and be like, this is garbage, and then just trash it and start over. But the review is almost done. Q2 versus X100V. And I even threw a secret camera in there, but then I didn't like it and I got rid of it. So that's no longer in the review. It's not a part of the thing. Just to let you know, it was a Fuji X-T5. I wanted something as the middle ground between the X100V and the Q2. So it's a higher resolution, 40 megapixel, APS-C sensor. I've had XT30s, XT3s. I absolutely love those cameras. They were so much fun. I did not get that same joy out of the XT5. I don't know if it was the build quality or the really unpredictable, wonky autofocus. I did not have success with it, so I ended up returning it. But and now I'm also, after using an M, I'm scrambling to put money together to buy an M or maybe an SL2S or an SL3S when it comes out. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'm really looking forward to that video. And I know you sent me some screenshots. They looked pretty sweet. So, yeah. And Brandon, first of all, I just love the videos you put out on your Caffeinated Camera channel because I know they take a while for you to make, but they're doing well for your channel size. And so just keep up the good work, man. Everyone should go check out that channel and subscribe over there too. So,
yeah, I'll do my best.
We don't put a lot in the description, but we do have other channels down there. So, but to get some of those shots, Brandon, you picked up some new gear to make that happen, right?
Yeah, I really didn't want to spend, like, my goal is the M and then maybe something else that we'll talk about a little bit later. So I didn't want to spend any money, but Snow Canyon State Park in St. George is so beautiful, and I really wanted to showcase some of that environment. So I bought a car mount so that I could do some talking head, but also get some of the surrounding area and just to shoot something different. I've wanted to shoot some like car mounted stuff for a long time. So I picked up a small rig. I think it's the SC like 15K. I don't know. Small rig's naming structure's weird. But it was only like $380, and generally most budget systems, car mounts, are garbage. Like, you're going to probably lose a camera at some point. or your only other option is spending like $1,500 on a Tilta Hydra. But for the, sub $400 I spent, it was really good. It was really fast, and I really enjoyed it. And I think with the Komodo and the IRIX Cine lenses, the results were way better than I expected, especially since it was literally my first time ever using one.
They look great, man. So I'm pumped to see that all
Thanks, dude.
Put together. And I also like when you're picking up gear that allows you to get cooler shots. So I'm big fan, All right, so R8, I just want to give people a little bit of an update if you haven't been watching. I put out a few videos on my channel, so first impressions, overheating, stabilization tests. The stab was interesting, so it's pretty similar to the R6 II, other than like the walking vlogging test and long telephoto. But the key is if you're going to buy the R8, like you need a stabilized lens. Like that's what it came down to.
You got to get some of those stab lenses.
Yeah, so because the straight up stab on that camera is not great. The digital stab is not great, and it's a very small camera, so your hands are all over the place trying to hold it. It's very light. And so I did a studio testing overheating test because it hasn't been warm here. But yesterday I was out doing some testing, or sorry, the day before, I was out in my driveway and it was like 65 degrees outside, and I wasn't even recording and the camera overheated.
What?
Yeah.
65
so I noticed,
not recording and it overheated?
Yeah.
Is that a feature? That's
I've been
awful.
so weary of this camera overheating, and like it was just I noticed the first day I took it out and shot with it that if you were in 24 frames and you flipped it to 60 frames per second, like the meter just jumped up like 4 or 5 bars. Like, yeah. So anyways, I was out and I had it set up. I was gonna do some testing, and I flipped it over. It was like at 3 or 4 bars, and I flipped it over to 4K 60, and it was like up to 10 and flashing, and then it overheated.
Oh my God.
Like it was like running. It wasn't even recording. I was like running out in the driveway. I was like on my phone for a few minutes, like setting things up. And
just given that jump, even though you're not doing anything, does it have the original R5 like overheat cripple hammer in it?
I mean, the camera's warm.
Or do you think it's legit?
Dude, I don't know. I mean, the reality is like the R6 II is like, it's the same sensor and same processor, but it's a much bigger body. Like the R8 is a tiny little body, and you can't get the same thermal capacity out of that. So, I mean, I think the same thing is going to be true about the ZVE1 to some extent as well. I mean, I don't have that camera, but it's the same idea. You take like a bigger camera, you shove it in a tiny body.
For sure.
There's compromises, man. I mean, it's a $1,500 full frame camera that can shoot 4K 60.
The old cripple hammer.
So I guess we'll talk about the cripple hammer quite a bit in this episode. Anyways, I'm going to do more testing and reviewing and some user guides and stuff. So, but overall, like the images is what you'd expect out of the R6 II. But the big thing is I'm going to start working on, or I have started working on R7 versus R8, because that's a lot of people have questions about, because that's the same price, those two cameras. All right, so on to news and rumors.
Da 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 da.
All right, is that the song we're gonna? Okay, so
Sure.
so DJI came out with some new drones, the Mavic 3 Pro, Mavic 3 Pro Cine. So now it has
Inspire
3. Well, that came out before. That was.
Oh, I guess we did talk about that at NAB, but they were just
at NAB, yeah,
throwing drones.
So now we have 3 lenses or 3 cameras in the. Yeah, I still have 1 in mine. I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I've got 2, and I love it. You know,
okay.
I really don't see me needing to upgrade for quite a while on a drone.
Now that I have the Mavic 3 and I've been using it, I bought the Mavic 3 Classic and I've been using it for the last, I don't know, month and a half or so for real estate. That drone is blowing my mind. Like it is so good.
Yeah.
So
it's really
totally
good.
worth that one. It's really good. It flies great. Image is unreal. It shoots in log. The colors are just so poppy. So anyways, so Nikon Z8 is, more rumors are flying around about that, which
Yep.
first of all is really funny because the whole rumor world is just funny to watch from afar, especially with Andre at Sony Alpha Rumors, because he posted a rumor about the Z8 and the price, and he like had a screen grab, and it turned out it was from Jared Poland's like April Fool's Day video.
Swing and a miss.
So Jared, like, I don't know if you guys follow Jared Poland, but like he posted, he's like, "Are you kidding me? This was on my April 1st, April Fool's Day Like you see the screenshot and it was okay. So it's like I think between that
That's just awesome. Like that's a pretty gnarly miss right there.
I think between that and that, what was it, the Tamron lens that we were talking about before that they totally botched?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Do you think people are like sending these like photos to Andrea to be like, hey, let's see if we can get him on this one? Like, I just...
Maybe, and I think once you're a rumor site, the sheer amount of content you got to put out to stay relevant, because you got, like, it's all about being the first to market with a rumor site. So you're literally just throwing out like 2 or 3 videos a day, putting it, you know, whatever you got to do to like keep eyes on your page. So I think it's a combination of being so like time sensitive and going so fast that you're just like you're dropping balls, you know?
Okay. So let's talk about the Z8 for a second. I know we talked about it before, but it's going to be similar to the Z9, but smaller and cheaper. I don't know all the differences. I think the specs aren't completely narrowed down at this point, but it is going to launch on May 10th. Big thing will be the price, where that comes in.
4 days away.
Yeah, so probably right after this podcast comes out or right around the time of this. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the price will be a huge factor if it can come in and be really competitive with cameras like the R5, the A7 R5, because it's going to be a high megapixel camera. So, but my big question is, I know we joke about this a lot, but like, why isn't anyone talking about Nikon? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm sure plenty of people talk about it. Maybe just not on YouTube. Like, I feel like Nikon users are bloggers. Like, they blog. And they were like the DP review. I don't know. It seems like this is coming from somebody that hasn't spent a lot of time in this industry. So they just haven't had great video presence. So obviously between us, like that's, you know, they're not very relevant. But for photo, they have been like one of the big brands for photo for so long. Like Nikon absolutely crushes it as a photo camera. But I think they get ripped on because they've just underwhelmed for the last few years with video, with the exception of the Z9. So I don't know.
Yeah. I think that, it was like Nikon and Canon for a long time in terms of pro photo stuff. Maybe it's marketing too. I don't see them pushing hard with the marketing stuff. Like, I don't see them getting cameras into people's hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they don't have a strong presence, at least on YouTube, with, you know, like compared to like Sony or something like that. They don't, you know.
I know everyone I've heard who uses them or have tested them, like, colors are unbelievably good. Image is great.
Ergos.
Yeah, so, I don't know. Maybe I got to try out some Nikon cameras. I keep saying that, but...
no.
What? I mean, not to buy them, maybe borrow them or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. All right, so moving on. There's a couple Sony rumors. One is the next ZV-1. I know these numbers. You're not good with these, Brandon. The ZV-1.
Wait a sec. Oh, the ZV-1? Like,
yes.
There's a Mark II coming out?
Yeah.
Oh, joy.
I know. So the ZV-1 is the tiny camera with the built-in lens. Okay, so it's like a 1-inch sensor made for vlogging. There's a lot of vlogging cameras coming out. I guess that could be a whole nother episode. I got a lot of thoughts on that. But anyways, we don't know much about it other than it's probably going to be pretty similar to the first one. I just hope they put a wider lens in it, because that was the biggest complaint about the original ZV-1, is it wasn't wide enough. So if it is, my guess is it's going to be very similar. Like, Sony likes to they have the best recycling program ever over there. I mean, they'll take the camera, they'll throw in a couple things, sell you a new camera. So
there you go.
We'll see what happens with that. Yeah. Well, I'm curious if they get all the new tech in there, if they can get the AI chip in there, like what the price is going to be, those kinds of things. There's also more rumors about a Sony a6700, which there's not anything specific yet, but I think a lot of people are expecting a hybrid APS-C camera soon, which makes sense. They haven't put out one in forever. From what I've seen in the rumors, they're going to take the sensor out of the FX30. I was hoping for a different sensor, but we'll keep an eye on that. Price will be a huge factor as well. Leica Q3 rumors, Brandon. I'm sure you're following this pretty closely.
Yeah, I mean...
Yes and no?
Ish. We'll just say ish.
Okay.
I know that it's supposed to have the Leica M11 sensor and the processor. I really followed until I found out it wasn't going to have a new, like, 35mm lens. It's sticking with the same lens. The lens in the Q2 is absolutely amazing, but it's it's really wide. It's a 28, and a lot of people say it's more like a 26 or a 24 that they're correcting. For me, like, my jam's a 35, so if they had put a 35 in there, I probably wouldn't have bought the Q2. I would have like waited for the Q3, but it's not going to have that, and it's supposed to have an articulating screen and USB-C charging. So it's a pretty big upgrade from the Q2, from what I've heard. I have no idea when it's coming out. You know, who knows?
Okay, that would be cool if it has the M11. That would be a big upgrade, right?
Yeah, so right now it's got a 47 megapixel sensor with some like different crop modes. The M11 is a 60 megapixel sensor.
Okay.
I've heard it's got fantastic dynamic range. So
you think so? What would then be the difference between the Q3 and the M11? The lens?
Yeah, just the lens. You know, fixed lens. Like M is going to have interchangeable lenses. The Q3 is going to have a fixed lens.
Gotcha.
So
okay, this is me being a dummy about Leica. So
no,
thank you for clarifying.
It's all good, and I'm a dummy. This is my first Leica. I'm already doing the Brandon, like, learn everything I possibly can in the shortest amount of time. But yeah, that's the big difference.
All right. So there's a rumor about a Canon vlogging camera coming out.
Oh my gosh, dude! You sent me the photo of this thing, and I am intrigued because it's so damn weird.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a weird camera. So in the image that I saw, it's supposed to be announced on May 11th, and it was like a really vague, it was like I'm sure you'll put this over the screen, but like a person like holding a towel or a handkerchief or whatever. I stared at it for a while to see if I could see any sort of like shape or anything. And I also remembered that there was a patent put out about some weird vlogging camera a few years ago, which I then saw some people talking about. And it's this like camera that's like vertical, like it has a grip built in that you just hold it.
It's like a pistol grip.
Yes.
And then there's like a lens on there. Like, I'll also post that photo so people get the context. But that's what I was like, huh? Like, it's ingenious from an ergonomic standpoint. Like, that would be so much more comfortable to use than like holding your camera by a lens, you know, like
or by the grip or something, you know, like from the side or from the So super curious. I have no clue what they've been so tight-lipped about rumors. Like, they don't let anything out, which is,
dude, the fact that this wasn't seen months out in advance is honestly kind of incredible.
So we'll keep an eye on that. Again, I don't know if that weird grip thing is the
it's speculation.
Speculation. I was just trying to like guess, and then anyway, so we'll keep an eye on that. I'm just so fascinated by the fact that they keep coming up with vlogging cameras. Like,
let's just make sure we don't post anybody's April Fool's Day things as like actual things.
Yes.
Okay, Josh?
Okay, that was actually a patent that was published, so that was a thing. It exists.
It exists.
It exists. I don't know if the camera exists, but the patent exists. Let's clarify. All right, let's get into some Red stuff because there is some really exciting Red news. First of all, let's talk about, before we get into what you're really excited about, let's talk about the Nikon versus Red lawsuit, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about this. So if most people don't know, Red has a patent on compressed internal raw storage. They had since they came out, I don't know what year, like 15 years ago or something crazy. And there are other companies that use it, but they pay a licensing fee. And Red is okay with that as long as people pay them for it, because they designed it. They deserve to get paid for it. So Nikon came out with a Z9 and put it in there and didn't get permission. So there was a lawsuit. And from what I saw, the case ended, but like everyone's like, Nikon won. It's like, no, they just now have to pay the licensing fee. Like,
yeah, well, I thought it was just dismissed.
It was dismissed, but there's a lot more like behind the scenes that we don't know. And it's like,
yeah, for sure.
Clearly, like if it's still in the camera, like they're just going to be paying Red. Like they have to if it was dismissed. So
yesterday on a live stream, Jared Land, he's not the owner, but he's the CEO of Red.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically said nobody has a clue how many companies actually come to us and ask, and we go, yeah, for sure, go for it. Like this is, but not a lot of people implement it.
But like DJI put in their raw in like the 4D was an issue, and then they corrected it. They like worked it out with Red, and so now they can have it. So, and then Jared in that same live stream said, yeah, we pay for licensing fees for other tech that we use in our cameras. Like it's common practice. It's not weird at all. It's just when people don't pay for it is the problem,
Yeah.
So it wasn't like Nikon won. It was like, like this is just business. You know what I mean? All right, so let's get on talking about the Komodo X, which is firing up a lot of people right now, including you. So you're eating ramen and peanut butter and jelly for the next 3 months, I guess?
Oh, yeah. I'm figuring out which body parts I can sell on the black market.
All right, so you want to give a little rundown here? I mean, I could too, but you're more excited about it, so.
The Komodo is my favorite camera. We did an episode. It's by far my favorite camera. There are things that make the Komodo not as A-cam friendly as stuff like a C7, right? Like the audio, the I/O, maybe frame rates, etc.
It wasn't
Komodo
designed that way,
X,
you know?
Yeah, it wasn't. It was designed as a crash cam. It was never meant to be that. So it's interesting when so many people are like, well, it's a shame that it doesn't have this. It's like, well, it was never meant to be that, right? So what I think is cool about Red is they've listened. They've seen, like, the Komodo has sold more than any other camera they've ever made. So many people are asking for this thing. And they went, okay, let's build it. And so yesterday on a live stream, Jared like accidentally leaked the Komodo X. Like, he tried to show a part of it, and you can clearly see Komodo X on there. It's basically ready to go, so it's going to be announced pretty soon. But it is their halfway point between the S35 Raptor and a Komodo. So it's a Komodo, much improved upon to make it a more suitable A camera.
So it's interesting. Yeah, like Red's whole philosophy is they design a camera and then people use it how they want. You know what I mean? Like, even though it was designed as a crash camera, people are like, yeah, but it's badass. Like, we can use this as a, regular camera or as an A cam. So in terms of price, it hasn't been dialed in yet. And Jared, like, you could say he like leaked it, but like, come on, man, the guy was like ready to pull that thing into the screen.
He is the absolute best. He just, like, there's so many things that he says, and then Steve's like, you can't say that. He's like, oh shit, well, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
You can just see he's so excited.
He's so excited. Yeah,
I can't wait.
Yeah, he can't wait to talk. It's got to be hard for him not to talk about it, especially with the people that he works with. He's known for a long time. But so big upgrades that are more or less confirmed at this point. We're going to still see the 6K global sensor. Global shutter, sorry. We're going to see improved audio, right?
Yep.
We're going to have some sort of electronic ND system.
Yeah, that was announced actually quite a while ago. And so originally it was just meant for the Raptor, but it sounds like it's going to be for Komodo and Komodo X.
Okay, so we don't know the exact size of the sensor, but probably around Super 35, definitely not full frame.
He said not full frame.
But is it a little bit smaller than Komodo? We don't know.
It's, again, these are kind of like leaks in a way where he's kind of insinuating, so it's hard to interpret what he says, but perhaps slightly bigger. And the only reason I said that is because it sounded like better dynamic range is coming to it. So, yeah, it didn't sound like it was the exact same sensor going into this, but he said it was a new
sensor.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I only caught, like, it was a 6-hour live stream, so forgive me for not watching the entire thing.
I'm pretty sure he said it's a new sensor, and they're sort of waiting on pricing and everything. They don't know the pricing yet, which is crazy that they don't, like, they do it the other way around. Like most camera companies, I feel like, have the price, and then they go, all right, how do we make it that price? They're just like, we're going to make the camera, whatever we can sell it for, we'll sell it for.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So again, I think the three big things, which one thing we didn't mention yet, the three big things I think most people wanted, and there's a lot of people that want all sorts of stuff, but ND filters, better audio, and slightly higher frame rates.
Slightly higher frame rates, yeah.
So if we see 6K 60, I think everyone would be super happy.
Pretty happy about that. Hopefully we'll see like 4K 100, 4K 120, but they're using CF Express now in it instead of CFast, so that's a huge thing. They're getting rid of like CFast, and so you're going to have faster offload speeds, and these higher frame rates are definitely a result.
And cheaper media. The CF Express Bs are way cheaper than the CFast 2, so that's nice as well. All right, so as price-wise, we're coming in between $6,000 for the Komodo, and what does the S35 Raptor go for, like 17, 18?
Well, the S35 Raptor, I think, is around 18.
So probably 10 to 12, somewhere in there?
10 to 12 is what I would peg it at.
And I would love to know when it's coming out, but the fact that Jared had a Stormtrooper Komodo X labeled, like, they're pretty far along.
Yeah, it's right around the corner from what it sounds like. Okay. And, he was like, I'll be talking to you guys very soon, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw an announcement in a few weeks.
Sweet. And so I also was like, I don't know if we talked about this on the podcast, but the Dragon X camera kit on B&H is half off right now. So I'm like, they're moving products. Like anytime I see that, I'm like, all right, what's coming, you know?
Yep.
All right. So kind of, I know we could talk about all this stuff forever, but I want to get on to the the main topic here.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about Sony versus Canon because everyone loves that discussion. It's like the Ford versus Chevy or whatever. Pepsi versus Coke. I'm sure we could come up with some more. But I want to use this sort of as a guideline to talk about a bunch of bigger topics. And so I know lately, let's first talk about like features and firmware updates, because this has been a huge discussion lately, especially because as new Sony cameras are coming out and they're updating certain cameras and not other cameras, I think a lot of A7S III owners, A1 owners are sitting here scratching their heads and being like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of videos pop up lately with the titles like, I'm never buying a flagship again, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's a lot of animosity right now.
Yeah, David Ostler, I think I don't know how to pronounce his name, but he's a big Sony guy, and he had a whole long video about that. And I totally get it. Like if their track record now is like you buy the camera and it doesn't get updated, then you have to accept that, and that could change your decision of whether or not you buy the camera.
Yeah, I mean, this is where the Canon versus Sony comes in. It's like you can kind of bank on Canon giving you some updates. Like they've got a track record now of updating their cameras.
Okay, so
Sony's got a track record of not updating their cameras. So you're like, which camp do I want to be in? Do I want to like spend the money right now and get this gnarly camera and then not get anything, or get the cripple hammer?
We'll get back to the cripple hammer in a second, but I want to talk about this Reddit post that came up about a week ago. And I saw it through. I'm not on Reddit, but I saw it through. Someone shared it on Facebook, and I think that I'm not gonna like throw this dude under the bus. I don't even know who it is. But when I read this, it just made complete sense and it was totally believable. Yeah. And so I think it really summarized a lot of what we are all kind of hypothesizing and theorizing about. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but basically this guy was at a Sony event and was hanging out with a rep afterwards, having some drinks. And he said internally within Sony, they have different divisions for their camera line, their creator line, and the photography-focused alpha line. These three lines report up to the same person who then report to imaging solutions. The executive responsible for all three lines has been given targets to hit around the FX and ZV lines by image solutions. Basically, like the people that have each of these lines are trying to hit certain targets. And so they're trying to force more sales in the direction of the FX line right now. So they're not going to update the other lines. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing because, I don't know, you put it on the screen or whatever, Brandon. But
yeah, we'll figure out a faster way.
I'll put a link in the description for that. If it's still up, I'll put a link in the description for it too, so you can see the original post. But basically, there's no limitations on hardware. It's just like how they're segmenting their market and trying to get sales in different divisions. And I think this is really hard for Sony users to swallow, because it's kind of like, okay, now we know what's going on, or at least, I mean, this is one dude's story, but it makes a lot of sense. I mean, let's be real here. And so like, this muddies the water even more, because it's not like in Canon where you have very different tech between their mirrorless line and their cinema line. Like the FX3 and the A7S III are the same camera inside. Like there is no difference.
Yeah.
So why can't we get the updates? And now we know why. So I don't know. What are your thoughts after reading that, Brandon?
Well, I kind of already knew it. Like, you know, these are business decisions. Like so many of these things are not, I don't think, are hardware decisions. I don't know. I guess I've just really jaded towards big businesses. This is clearly a big business decision, so I wasn't shocked to see it. But I just feel bad for the people that spent like $6,500 on an A1 and they've just been kind of left out to dry. A7S III, it's like, give me focus breather. You put it in this other small camera that's, you know, half the price of my camera. It's got the same tech. For some reason, it's got all these cool new features that I would love. No, it's got a different designation. And you're like, come on. So,
yeah, I think the line is so blurry, like I said, between Canon mirrorless, Canon cinema. But like when they came with the FX3, it's like clearly the Alpha division is working on that camera because it's the same camera inside. And then when they come out with the FX30, again, that's an Alpha division thing. Very different camera than the FX6, which was the cinema line, even though the same sensor. So It's just frustrating. And I think really there's two approaches here that we're seeing. Well, it's not really a clear thing with Sony because they're updating some cameras, not others. But a lot of the situation with Sony is like you buy the camera and you're pretty much getting the camera. Like you're probably not going to get a lot of updates. And so I see that like they just keep regurgitating hardware in different bodies with slightly better software and slightly better features. It's just a different approach.
I'll put up a poll and see what everybody that's watching thinks is like a better route, a smarter route, you know, like are you on Sony camp where you get everything all at once but you don't really get many updates, or are you more with Canon where they might cripple some things and then give that to you later down the road? I don't know.
So it's fascinating because I know we all joke about the cripple hammer.
Yeah.
But Sony cripples their cameras too in different ways. It's just not the standard Canon cripple that we all know about.
I call it the sledgehammer, the Sony sledgehammer.
It's not as like powerful as the cripple hammer though. The cripple hammer
is still a sledgehammer, Josh. Don't be so critical of my play on words.
All right, groups of 10. I get it. All right, so with Canon, though, they'll give you the camera, they'll cripple it really badly, and then they'll slowly update it over time. Is that better than just getting everything at once and then not getting any updates?
So I think of this like when you're watching sports, and especially like a fight, right? If you watch like the UFC, so much of that fight, if it goes the distance, is like who did the most at the very end, because that's the impression you're leaving with the judges. So for Canon, it's like they start out of the gate, you're like, but at the end of the fight, you're like, oh, dude, Canon just like updated their camera. It's got all these new features now. Those are the features it probably should have had to begin with, but the impression you're left with was like, oh yeah, they're really doing a lot. They're making great strides for us customers.
Like the C70 is a great example. That camera is so different, or the R5, such different cameras when they were released. It's funny because in some of these Facebook groups, which I don't post in, but I do read some of them just to sort of keep an eye on what's going on, both in Canon and Sony. And, you know, everyone, the Sony guys rip on the Canon guy, you know how it is. And then the Sony guys, the Canon guys are like, you know that the Sony guys are really pissed at Sony right now. Like, it's not just, like, the Canon guys are like, yeah, we know how the crippling goes. Like, we get it. We've accepted it. So it's different. I think, though, you have to remember that when you buy a camera, buy it for what it is now. Don't assume it's going to change. So everything that they add is bonus. And I agree that they should just put the stuff in the cameras from the beginning. So...
Yeah, so it's funny. What do you like better, Josh?
I don't know. Like, that's why I'm in both worlds. I can't pick Canon or Sony. I like them both for different reasons. There's no perfect camera system. There's no perfect camera. It's nice when you get updates, you know?
Yeah.
I think I'd rather have. I don't like what Sony's doing right now because it seems like it's a money grab. It seems like if you want the new features, you have to buy the new camera. From a consumer standpoint. Like the ZVE1 comes out, it has the new autofocus system, it has all these other little features, and you're like, why can't I get that in A7S III? It's like twice. It's like over $1,000 more. I already bought it. Like, you could put that in there. Yeah. Oh, if you want that, you got to buy the cheaper camera that has that stuff.
For me, yeah, I agree with you. For me, like I'm more on the Canon side, and it's like I know what I'm getting into. When I bought these cameras, I knew what the limitations were. I knew what they were offering. It was like a handshake agreement. Like, yes, I agree to have this camera for what it is. So everything else that's come to, you know, my C70, my R5C, the R5, like that was all icing on the cake. With the Komodo, I bought it knowing exactly what it was, and they've done so much to update and improve that camera, and it's like a completely different camera now as well. So me personally, I think I am leaning more towards like the Canon side of things with how they do their updates.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And also, I think that the division that I was talking about before is so much muddier on the Sony side. You know what I mean? And I think that's what makes it really tricky for Sony users in particular. The market segmentation, I think, is really interesting as well, and how that these cameras get marketed, because it's always been with Canon with their cripples. It's like, okay, time limits, overheating, like all the lists for video. It's like, if you want a professional video camera, like you need to buy the C70 or the C200. It was always like That was their whole thing, and everyone was like, "You're just trying to sell us on a more expensive camera." And it was like, but it was clear like what you were supposed to do. It is so confusing in the Sony world right now.
It's definitely more confusing than it was.
Yeah, and
like.
Sony has several lines, as most people know. They have the S line, the R line, the A7 line, and now the FX line. It's like, I just feel lucky that I have an FX3, which I love and I use every week for work. Like I use it to make money with. I love the camera. But like that's like the camera that's getting all the updates. So.
Yeah, I will say that I feel very fortunate that I have all these amazing cameras, and that I feel like I just kind of picked right. Like I could have made so many other mistakes by buying other cameras that had like really disappointing outcomes, but pretty much like your FX3, my C7, like everything's just been kind of gravy. I haven't had to deal with too much shit. So I know there's more people out there with like an A7S3 or something else that's just like, gosh dang it, you know?
Yeah, and the thing about the Canon mirrorless, I think that Sony mirrorless, I like the way they segment their market better. It's very clear, like you want resolution, you want video, you want a hybrid camera, you want speed.
They do a better job
series.
there for sure.
Canon, it just seems like from the R50 up through the R5, they all kind of do the same thing, just at slightly different levels.
Yeah.
And it's like, how much money do you want to spend?
Yeah,
it's like everything's a hybrid. Every level has less cripples. Like it's just like how crippled do you want the camera?
Less cripples.
That's how I think about it. I'm like, oh, you spend a little bit more, you get less cripples. You spend a little bit more, you get you get the R5C. You're kind of like still in cripple territory, but you get some of the benefits of the cinema world.
There's more band-aids. There's more workarounds. Like
workarounds, dude. That camera's all about workarounds. Amazing camera, but workarounds. All right.
Yeah.
So with all this, in terms of the marketing, I think it's interesting how they push out these cameras, and the one way that they do that is going to be with influencer marketing. So I want to talk for a little while about the influencer marketing and as being, I hate to call myself an influencer, but a YouTuber, someone who reviews gear. People listen to what we say, if we like it or not. Like we have an opinion, you could disagree with us, that's fine. There's a lot on the other side of this that I like to make known and available for people, because not everyone, I think a lot of people are starting to read between the lines and see what's going on, but it's cool to talk about. So first of all, I wanted to share a story, which I know we sort of hinted at before, about how
we're going to finally talk about it.
Yeah, so like YouTubers, influencers are sort of treated differently than the regular customer. And this stuff drives me crazy. So I'm going to share a story here about Rode. And the reason I'm going to share this is because I don't mean to like throw Rode under the bus. I'm sharing this as a story to explain what can happen sometimes. So we've talked several times about our audio issues with the Rodecaster Pro 2, and eventually I was like, I need to get this thing fixed, and I was just so frustrated with it because Brandon had the same issue on his, and I was like, I don't trust this thing. I want to return it. I wasn't able to return it anymore. I asked Rode, can you help me return this? They said no. I don't want to get into all the details and timelines, but it took a lot of effort to get in touch with them. Let me just say that. It was like weeks of hounding them with emails, social media, all that stuff. Eventually I talked to them and they were like, fine, we'll send it back to us and we'll fix it. And I was so frustrated. Before I got off the phone with I had to call him eventually. I was on the phone for like 35 minutes on hold, like wasted a good chunk of my day dealing with this. I was like, hey man, I'll do what I need to do, but I'm just going to let you know that I do make YouTube videos, and I'm going to tell people about this situation, because I think that the people that watch my channel will be interested in knowing what's going on here. And I'm just going to tell them what happened. And the guy got really quiet and he goes, okay, thanks for letting me know. I got off the phone, and about 20 or 30 minutes later, my phone rang from some other dude at Rode, and it was like, hey man, we'll send you a free Rodecaster Pro 2. And I was like,
what the
dude,
F?
I want to return. I was like, I want to return this. Like, I don't want the Rodecaster. I don't want to own any. I don't need two of them.
Yeah. No, two will be better.
And he was like, oh, I see what you're saying. And I was like, why? I didn't quite say, are you saying this to me because I'm a YouTuber? But like clearly, like we could put
the buzzer went off. Like, so, you know, they're like monitoring the channel, and somebody said YouTuber, and what? Batman. They have the big computer. It was like, caller number 47's a YouTuber. Get on that stat.
So I don't know what's going on at Rode. I don't know if there's like been a shift of like leadership or employees. It's just, from everything I've heard, they're a great company. I just had a horrible experience, and I want to share that with all of you. So I got my new Rodecaster Pro 2 and sold it. I sent back my other one, which they're replacing. They said they're going to fix it, but they're going to send me a new one now, and I'm going to sell that one too. So hopefully I'll come out ahead on this. But like the amount of time. And energy.
You might think like Josh is slimy for doing that, but like the amount of time and the frustration the guy's gone through, I totally condone Josh's actions about selling these things.
Well, I had the moment where the guy's like, "So do you not want me to send you the free Rodecaster Pro 2?" And I was like I have to take it, right? Because otherwise I'm going to lose out on this deal.
Yeah.
Because I'll sell my broken one or a fixed one for less than I paid for it. Like I don't want to come out anyways.
Behind. Yeah.
So the moral of the story is not like, again, to rip on Rode specifically, but there is a different sort of treatment that influencers, YouTubers get from companies.
100%.
And so that's what I wanted to share the story about. The result of that is I'm not going to use Rode products moving forwards as well.
We kind of knew that this channel was not getting sponsored by Rode.
Neither
of us have really had a pleasurable experience with the products or the customer service. I'm sure they've done great with other people, but for us, it's just it's a company we're just gonna like kind of pass on.
Yeah, and I think once you had the same actual issue with your Rodecaster Pro 2,
it was a short. Like the QC on that thing is not great. Like you would touch the side of the thing and the sound pads would start flying all over the place. So
that and that you had a similar experience as well. So in terms of customer support. So
yeah.
Anyways, let's move on from that. There's so much talk about influencer marketing and influencer experiences with brands and stuff. And one thing is that this is not unique to the camera space or YouTube. This is like everywhere in the world. Like manufacturers, people that are selling things will treat the people selling their stuff differently, right? They'll take them out for dinner. They'll bring them on a trip. They'll send them free stuff. They'll give them the new thing. And so there's so much of that world that goes on, and most of you watching this know about this as well. We're talking about, people being sent gear for free, which we'll definitely talk about in this. But things like, I'm going to say this in particular, like Sony Camera Camp is one thing. And I'm not saying this because I'm like jealous or I don't care about that stuff. I've never like sought it out. But you have these creators that are being taken on trips. Like, Brandon, if someone flew you to, or let's talk about Panasonic. You get flown to Japan for a week.
I'll say whatever you want me to say.
Even if so, Brandon's okay selling out like immediately. But even if you were tried to have like a journalistic approach to this, like you are a human, like you are influenced.
It would be so tough to like. Okay, I know Panasonic is footing the bill for me to fly to Japan. And this isn't to like say Panasonic, the Japan thing that they did. I'm just saying for me, if a company flew me to Japan, wined and dined me, and I was like, all right, I'll do this review. And then I do the review and their product sucks. And I just totally bash on their product. That would be weird. And it would just, I would feel trapped the entire time I was there. It was like, how do I spin this to make it sound better? Because what I would really like is another one of these trips or another one of these cameras. I don't want to be put in timeout, so I better say all the right things here.
So there's two things going on there. One of which is you want to go to the next one because it was awesome, right?
And
then the
I
other
didn't
thing
go to
is
the first one. I want to go to the next one.
The other thing is, as a human, someone did something nice for you. You want to do something nice for them.
Yeah.
That's in most of us out there. I think that's inherent, like into what is going on in the way that these things work. But the problem with this is that, okay, so you go to Japan, you come back, you make your review on these cameras. You're obviously going to like brush over some of the negative things because you want to have a favorable review. And then people watching these are influenced by these people. And they're just like, why is everyone loving this thing? Well, it's like, obviously, like they all did this thing, like, or they're, even if there was, let me just say, no money changed hands, right? Like, I'm sorry, like you are influenced by this, just as people are influenced by what you say. So I'm not bashing on any of the creators whatsoever. I think this is just all natural stuff that happens in all industries.
Yeah. If I would definitely say if a camera company eventually reached out to me, if Red was like, hey dude, do you want to come do this? 100% I would go, because I love red. I would go. So most of the people that go to Sony Camera Camp are big, like, you know, supporters of Sony. So I don't knock them.
So that leads me to talking about, in particular, Sony, but like NDA day, embargo day, YouTube video drop. You guys all know we're talking about when a new camera drops, you see a whole lot of videos. I know we joked about the ZV-1 50 videos over under. It seems like it just continually builds every cycle. I feel like every release just gets bigger and bigger, and there are more creators involved. And I am not part of that world. If I am invited to those things, I'm going to really have to think about how I approach it. But for right now, I am not part of that world because I haven't been seeking it out. I don't know. I just feel like when you see all those videos drop, these people are sending you a camera that you probably don't get to keep. A lot of these creators are not getting paid. They put out a video that they spend a lot of time on, and they really don't make a lot of money from that video. So to me, you're just doing free marketing work for these companies. And so I have trouble with that as a creator and as a business person because I'm doing work for free. Now, there's social capital. There's other things that come along with that. But that's a struggle point in general about brands sending products to individuals to review. Like, I don't want to get compensated for it because then it's a biased review. But at the same time, like, we're not getting compensated for this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tightrope for sure. And I obviously don't have a definitive answer what's best practice here. But when it comes to embargo day, I think more and more people are starting to have like an adverse reaction to so many videos dropping and filling their feed on embargo day that I wonder if it's almost a smarter creator business move to not be that person and release it 2 or 3 weeks down the road when you don't have so much competition. Because if you're a channel with, you know, less than 100,000 subs, like, you're getting buried. You're just getting buried. So I don't know.
I've even seen channels with more than 100,000 subscribers. So the ZV-1 release or announcement that happened not too long ago, I made a video. I didn't have the camera.
Yeah.
I made a video like ZV-1 versus FX3 was my discussion. Mm-hmm. And like, I got more views than people that had the camera. And it was like, who had bigger channels. So like, I don't know, that embargo day thing I think is a bad cycle for a lot of people. They kind of get stuck in that rut because they want to have the new camera. They want to be part of that discussion, part of that elite group of people, sort of that social standing, I think, in a lot of situations. Mm-hmm. And they put out a video. They can't say anything negative about it because they won't be invited back for the next one.
Yep, you're getting put in timeout.
You get put in timeout. There's been plenty of creators that have talked about that. And then this is not good for consumers. That's the bottom line for me.
Yeah. So how do businesses go about this differently then?
I don't have a solution for it. I think it's just, there's a big problem, and I think it's just kind of building to a point where unless like the consumers change their viewing habits or buying habits or speak up about it, like I don't think that anything's going to change. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Which, like, but it's always interesting bringing up something like this and not having a better solution. But in this case, we don't have a better solution. It's way too big. Yeah. So that, I mean, this is a discourse. It's not like, hey, this is our answer to this problem, but it's mostly just discourse. So I definitely want to hear from other people how to do it. I'm very much like in the business side, and it's like, well, this is like a really good business strategy to do it. Like it's obviously working for them. I think it creates some competition. We talked about Sony's embargo day. Canon, I feel like they're way different. Like the amount of stuff that came out on the R8?
Yeah, it was like nothing.
Just very few people actually had that camera. And even then, I remember Peter McKinnon being like the big Canon ambassador. He was probably the most critical out of any other thing that I watched on the R8. Like, he's like, yeah, it overheats, So, I mean, he was like pretty blunt with some of the issues. But he also might be so big that they can't put him in timeout. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's been interesting to watch him, talk about these new cameras. But you look at release day for the Canon cameras, like the R6 II They also, that announcement came out at midnight Eastern time because it was like Japan time or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it had like, no one knew it was coming. You had to really be like following weird rumors and stuff to know that that was happening. And it was just really quiet. And they invited like 4 or 5 creators to some event and they got to post videos and then that was it. So they have a very different approach.
Yeah. And I was going to ask, like, obviously the majority of viewers really like the embargo day, because I would think Sony would stop doing it if they weren't getting a ton of traction on it. But for you personally, and maybe you can, chime in on that statement, do you like Canon's approach better?
As of right now, I like Canon's approach better because I think it's too much. Like, I think Sony figured out this formula a couple years ago and has been crushing it. Like we say all the time, they're crushing it with their influencer marketing. Yeah. Obviously, they're making a huge difference in the market. They're selling a ton of cameras. Everyone I talk to uses Sony for the most part. Like, it's just the way it is. And it's partially because they make great cameras, but it's also the marketing and the hype. And, everyone's using Sony, so we're all in the same. So they just take that and they're just like doubling down, tripling down on it. And I think it's at the point now where people are like, are you kidding me? Like, really, I need 50 videos on the ZVE1?
It's a bit much. I'm probably contributing to it because every once in a while when they do release something that I'm interested in, like, I look to some of my favorite creators to put their own kind of special sauce. I already know what's going into this camera. I've seen it from somebody else, but it's like, I want to get so-and-so's take on it because, like, I just really like how they do things. But yeah, I would agree that it is a bit much.
All right. Well, I contributed on the ZVE one day. I posted like 5 hours after the announcement or whatever, so I guess I'm part of it, but
you're
sort of
not.
I don't
Josh.
know. Thanks.
Time out.
Right. I made the 51st video, even though I didn't have the camera. So I want to speak generally about my approach here to the way I've been trying to handle my channel and gear reviews and stuff. Is that I'm trying to take a journalistic approach, Brandon, and I think this becomes more and more challenging as we need the products from the companies as well.
Yeah.
But in terms of a journalistic approach, I'm trying to stay neutral. I'm not taking money from brands, taking products from brands as well. I want to talk about that because not just the early release stuff, but you get products offered to you and sent to you both, on your main channel as well.
Just on the main channel, nothing. Well, that's not true. I guess early on in the camera channel, I got sent like a few like lights or something like that. But yeah, we talk a lot about this. But yeah, on the main channel, I've been sent some heavy duty things. So
one thing lately, I just say like, hey, if you send me this, I'm not going to guarantee to make your review. You feel free to send it to me. If I think it's valuable for my audience and I think that they'll want to hear about it, then I'll make a video. But that's up to me.
Yeah, a long time ago, I had like a one-on-one call with Donna, I want to say like 3 years ago. And I asked him, I was like, how do you go about sponsorships? Because it was at a point where I started getting an influx of sponsorships requests. And Donna sent me kind of his like one page of how he responds to those emails. And it was very like, I'm happy to take product, but in no way does this guarantee that you're getting anything from me. And if I do, then it's on my terms, my deadline, speaking solely about the things that I want to talk about if I think it fits in with my audience. And I've kind of used that ever since.
Yeah, and I wrote my own version of that, I guess, and I've been sending that to people. And a lot of companies say, no, we're not fine. We're not going to send you anything unless you're making a video. Yeah. I'm like, cool, I don't want to work with you then.
Yeah,
And some companies are great, and they're like, yeah, try out our products. At least give it, like Sennheiser, when I talk to them, they're like, that's cool. Just let us know if you like it or don't like it. Give us some feedback. Yep. Like, we'd love you to test it. And I'm like, cool, those are the companies I want to work with.
That's the company I want to work with. Yeah.
Exactly. So shout out again to Sennheiser. Shout out to Donna, too. I got to meet Donna at NAB. He's a cool dude.
What a good dude.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that's a tricky spot. And then I see these videos that are sponsored reviews. I don't know how you could have a review that is sponsored because you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's here's the product. Here's a lump sum of cash. Make a review on it. It's like, how do you not like, how does it, I can see it being honest. I could see somebody being honest, but the perception of it being honest, that just seems like an impossibility. Like I could do an honest sponsored review. I could, but would anybody believe me that it's honest? Probably not. And that hurts me. That hurts the company. So I don't know why people make them to begin with, is what I'm saying. Like, why even go there?
Because they're getting paid. Like, that's the thing is, like, when you get to a certain point, someone goes, hey, we'll give you this amount of money to make this video. And you go, yeah, that's a lot of money, you know?
Yeah. If you're flashed money that could, like, change the outcome, the trajectory of your life, you're just like, dude, I'm already making these videos now. Somebody wants to pay me like $5,000 for a video. Like, dude, that puts food on your table. That's hard. That's really hard. That's really hard.
Yeah, it is really hard. And I think that's sort of the bigger struggle with this kind of stuff is once money gets involved. And for me personally, I know, Brandon, we've talked a lot about this offline, obviously, about sponsorships and brand deals and stuff. I've taken sponsors on my farming channel, and mainly because they were companies I worked with and believed in, and I wasn't getting paid a lot for them. And now that I'm starting to consider and have done some sponsorships on the camera channel, I am sponsored by Squarespace, and I'm doing a bunch of stuff for them. But to me, I sought out like working with Squarespace because they're kind of neutral in the camera world. Like I'm not.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I use Squarespace. Like I use it for my own website, so I'm like, cool, I'll promote them.
Yeah.
But if I start taking money from a light company or a lens company or a microphone company, then it's like, how can I make an independent review? How can I be a journalist about this?
Yeah.
Now, there's so much gray area with this. There isn't like, you do this and you're not cool. You do this and you are cool. And I think what is acceptable for everybody is different. And it's hard. But I think one thing you have to remember is you need to think about your perception of what you're doing. Like you said, even though you're doing an honest review, that's not the way everyone's going to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So
one thing that I've done to, and I'm sure I'm going to get reamed for this, but like in my mind, this makes sense. Just FYI. So like on my main channel, it's about like fitness and tech. I was sent something very expensive, do a review, can't do a review, I'll do a first impressions. Like this is just what does the product do? But I also did the exact same thing for their biggest competitor. So it was like, I've got both things, here you go. And then months down the road, it was like, now I'll do a review. Here's all of the information. And when it came to the customer service side of the review, I took myself out of the equation because I knew it was already going to be biased. Like I can't say anymore that, oh yeah, the customer service is great. Like anytime I need help, they are fast. I went to like the Better Business Bureau and read it and was like, here are all the complaints, here are all the positives from both sides of the company. You make the decision as to what you think is better.
So what happened with the companies that you were working with?
I could have the relationship I want to have with them. Like I could choose to have a relationship if I wanted to. One of the companies I thought was being unfairly biased towards me. I didn't think their quality control was great. I thought their customer service was abnormally good towards me. And I just said, hey, I can't work with you anymore. Like until you fix these issues, I want to see that the regular community is getting the same treatment that I am. And I want to see the quality control improve. If that's the case, I would love to work with you again because I love you as a people and as a company. I think you're great. So, and then the other company, I still have a good relationship with them because they don't have that issue. They never really had the customer service issues to begin with, and their quality control was much better. And I really like both products. So I was like, this is obviously the one that I want to continue to move forward with. But I'm not doing anything for them, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I just use the stuff.
Yeah, so you can sort of start hearing some of the struggles that we have as reviewers and creators and influencers and some of that stuff. And the reality is it's really hard to be competitive in a tech space when you don't have special treatment from these companies.
Yeah.
Right? When you're not getting gear early, when you're not allowed to borrow things. Like you have a disadvantage in terms of views and traction and revenue, essentially, when you don't have access to these things. So it's really hard to navigate that path. So I want to talk a little bit as we slowly try to wrap this up here, but like in terms of revenue streams for YouTubers, there are a lot of different approaches. So we have AdSense, which is Google pays us for watch time and stuff like that. They give us money based on the ads that they're putting in. We have affiliate sales. We have sponsorships and brand deals. And we also have like products if we're selling any products. So everyone has different approaches, and it's great. Like Brandon and I talk about this a lot. A lot of our fellow creators in the Discord that we're part of, like we have a lot of these kinds of discussions. I'll talk about my approach a little bit in that I don't think I'm going to be taking sponsors very much longer unless it's like just the right sponsor and they offer me enough money to make it worth my while, because some of these sponsors don't pay a lot. So and the thing is, like, everyone's so eager to get sponsorships that if I don't do it, there's some other guy that'll do it for the same or less money. So I'm starting to see, it's like, is that worth this much money? Because this video stays up forever.
Yep.
So there's that struggle. I just focus on creating value in my videos. And I think that for me has been my approach on the farming channel as well, and also on the camera channel. I just try to be myself. I'm honest, I'm straightforward, and I just focus on providing value. And for me, that's working out in the long term. So that's been my sort of overall goal. I'm going to try to hold up my ethics as much as possible and with a journalistic approach. It obviously gets complicated as you get more involved in this. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's pretty awesome that you're being honest. You're like, listen, I'm a human and I'm doing the best I can right now. But, you know, Josh, 50,000 subs later, like, it could be a different story. I don't, like, knowing you, I don't think you're going to be a different human. It's not like the money's going to change, because that's the thing. Like, you're doing well for yourself with what seems like very few subs compared to other channels. So I don't see you changing just because you get 50,000 more subs. You know what I mean? Like, the revenue is not going to be like so much that you're just like, you know, on private jets and just like selling out and shit. So,
no, I'd rather pay off some debt first.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people don't realize behind the scenes is like, oh, when you hit 50,000, you hit 100,000 subscribers, like there's a switch that happens. Like, no, like everything has been happening ahead of time. And I think that there's a lot of people making a living on very small channels if you were careful about it and have a solid approach. And so that's been fascinating to me, is that, like, so my farming channel, I have 220 something thousand subscribers right now, and I don't post there, but I know what that feels like to have a big channel. And now I know what it's like running a smaller channel, and I'm taking a very different approach with it. But you can make a lot of money with a smaller channel. And just like I don't care about having a big number in front of my name, I don't care about going to these events and getting these, like, to me, it's not about the social status. Like, I would like to go to these things just to talk to other creators. That was the biggest thing for me.
That's the biggest draw of going to Sony Camera Camp, isn't the Sony stuff. It's like, oh, cool, I can go and talk to, like, David Manning. I can go see Brandon Washington, like guys that I've had relationships before. It's just an excuse. Somebody's paying me to go hang out with my buddies. That's what I would want. But
the problem is, once you go, then people have an opinion about that, and then people will make an assumption based on, oh, you went to Sony Camera Camp, you're one of those guys now.
Yep.
It's hard, man. There's no winning in these situations. So
there really isn't.
All right, so looking forward, Brandon, like, are you, like, thinking about your approach to your channels and sort of like how you're balancing all these revenue streams?
My stuff kind of, like, last year with the main channel, I don't know if I've talked about it on here, but, you know, it just died. Like, it's just, like, out of nowhere, it really just kind of crashed. And after it crashed, it gave me some time to reflect on, like, what I really wanted to do with that channel. Did I want to keep putting content to the channel? If I did, how did I want to do that content? And for me, the thing that makes it worth it is just doing the video I want to do. If I make something, I'm in a position money-wise where I'm not struggling for money, so I don't need sponsorships. I don't need people to give me money to make a video. I just want to make the most valuable, kick-ass, entertaining thing I possibly can. The most rewarding thing for me is putting something out there that was originally in my brain, and I got the thing as close as I could to, like, what I was dreaming about or whatever. So when I do a review or I do a video, that's the most important thing for me. And if people are like, dude, that was really cool and really valuable, I'm just going to keep doing that. That means the style of video I make, I can't do every week. It takes me 2-3 weeks sometimes to make a video. I'm okay with that now. That is very edifying. If a really cool brand came along the way and they were like, hey, we want to throw you, you know, a whole bunch of make it worth it money, Sure, as long as it's, fits within my provide tons of value and it's a first impressions and it's not a review or whatever. Or to use that, like if I can give an example, a company wanted to do a sponsored video and I said, hey, I'm going to use this in a really weird environment. It had nothing to do with a review. It was a challenge. It was like, could I use this product in a really challenging setup? That's the kind of video I do, because then it's not a, do I like this or not? It's just, will this handle a situation that I'm putting it in from a creative standpoint? And that felt good. I was like, yes, this feels honest. So I don't know. That was a weird tangent, Josh.
No, it was great. I think these are good conversations to have because I think it gives insight into what's going on in our worlds, but also if you're a creator watching this, like realizing that all this stuff is being discussed and thought about. I think there's also other ways of taking sponsorships. I see like, I'll use like Danny Gewirtz, for example, who we've talked about on this podcast before, who took money from certain companies to make crazy spec ads and crazy like mini documentaries. And he used that to fund these projects. I think that's a really clever way of being able to do what you want at the same time of being, rewarded for it financially.
Yeah.
So not everyone can be in that world.
Yeah.
But there are ways around it. And so I think there's a spectrum of creators. You're either like pure artist or you're like pure business person. And like everyone kind of falls somewhere in the middle there. Spectrum. And Brandon, like talking to you and knowing you, like you're much closer to the artist side. And like for me, I'm probably pretty much in the middle, maybe slightly more towards the artist side, in my opinion. I don't always make the best business decisions for my channel. But if you're the complete business side, you'll know what I'm talking about. These channels that are just pumping out the videos because they know they get the most views. They're playing the YouTube game with the titles and thumbnails. Like they're, you know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with this stuff. It's just like a different approach. It's just what makes you happy in the end. So anyways, long circle around talking about influencer marketing and how we handle it because we're part of the situation. But this really all came from Canon versus Sony, Brandon.
I was just going to say, so who's better, Josh, Canon or Sony?
I think they're just, again, they're different
approaches. I'm going
approaches.
Canon. I'm saying it right now. Fight me in the comments. I'm going Canon. Canon.
Yeah. You're going red.
Canon and red.
Yeah. So I think what I'm trying to say is that they're different approaches. Neither one is correct. There's no right or wrong way to do this. There's pros and cons. I'm just glad we have choices. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Somebody's going to say Panasonic.
Yeah, just go nuts down there. We appreciate all of you guys. This has been an awesome 10 episodes, and we're looking forward to the next, not group of 10, series, season. We'll come back as soon as we can with a bunch of cool stuff. So again, please subscribe, comment down below, share this with everybody. We really appreciate all the support. It's been a ton of fun.
Yeah, peace.